So you might be surprised to know that some Austin FC players are moonlighting as Catholic school teachers.
Nothing would surprise me at this point, Phil.
Not really Catholic school teachers per se, but presenting to a Catholic school, specifically my daughter's Catholic school. So Damian Loss and Dani Pereira were in to talk to the students, and Emmy wanted to convey something because, well, we'll just listen to what she had to say.
Transition.
So, Emmy, Damian Loss and Dani Pereira came to your school a couple days ago.
Yes, and I made a joke. I started saying it out loud, but then I stopped and I didn't really get to the part that made Dad laugh. Kid in fourth grade, I'm pretty sure they were asking if they ever lost a game, and if they did, how did they feel? And this was the joke. Well, they lose too many games, so I don't think they feel any emotions now.
So she characterized this as a sick burn. I would
agree.
I just want to know your reaction.
I would agree. I think this is definitely sick burn territory. I don't know that I've got a specific degree category of burn that I would assign to it, but sick as a relative descriptor, I think, is beyond accurate. And this is the kind of pressure these guys need to hear from their harshest critics.
Right. The third grade set. And that's the thing. She's sometimes trying to delve into the world of soccer journalism. Mm-hmm. And I think that displays a level of cynicism that probably qualifies her to do that job.
Yeah, I think some would say if she is more comfortable with the scathing takes than I am. So, I mean, I feel a heat on my seat, Phil. That's the takeaway I've got.
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hurry up, shut up, hurry up, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. And lo and behold, 2 wins in a row. But we've got to play James, sort of, maybe. Moisés, how are you doing? And happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We should say we'll do a mom report here at the end, but just wanted to get into the soccer, obviously, as we record here on Sunday morning, Mother's Day, while my favorite mother, aka my wife, is still asleep. We are recording and getting ready for a match against Minnesota United in St. Paul. So near the Blackheart, the mighty Blackheart of St. Paul. So let's delve into it. Moisés, any initial thoughts about, again, we're on a 2-game win streak. I'm going to use the air quotes there, but certainly good to see 2 wins against teams that were probably pretty beatable at home as things turned out, but teams looking pretty good, I would say, overall.
Yeah, I think kind of a little digest compendium of responses there. My favorite mother, I think you've got something for a sitcom out of that. Not quite My Favorite Martian, reference for people who like classic television, not from this century. I think the thing that I'm happiest about when the team listens to our podcast and fulfills all the prophecies of our podcast.
Sorry, Dani. Sorry, Damian.
Yeah. For me, it's the fact that they have been tested. Their roster depth has been tested. They are well accustomed to there not being a fixed most ideal 11 that plays every game. Mm-hmm. Because it never has. The entire season so far just has not been a consistent 11, which I see going toward the World Cup break as an advantage, as various federations are calling in players earlier than some of them are happy about.
We'll get to that in a sec. Yeah.
I'll get to that in a minute. And I feel like this is them well positioned. People could say, well, look at the 2 teams that they just beat. I mean, they should have beaten those teams. Any team in the world, 11-year-olds should have beaten those teams. Okay, fine. Save it. We'll
get to SKC later too.
Yeah, we'll get to SKC later. What I think is most positive is that these guys have gotten rocked. They have hit the version of a rock bottom that Nico has said is sometimes important for players to hit. Better now than part of the way into the second half of the season, which is going to be more grueling for Austin and for every other team in the league, as we've discussed. I think that they are well positioned having gone through a great deal of beginning of season adversity, my biggest issue with the very reactionary, well, fire the coach, that'll fix everything takes, is firing Nico Estevez was not going to suddenly make a bunch of these guys not injured, much less put everybody in the Austin fandom into a time machine to take us back to the beginning of the season to have that entire roster of guys not be injured. There's no time machine acquisition bump to firing a coach. Now that the majority of the roster is healthy or healthy enough or reasonably healthy, the question is, what does this team actually look like at something resembling not full strength, but functional full strength, effectively?
With one notable exception. Jayden Nelson, we learned on Friday that he's got a inflammation. Again, he has had various leg issues throughout the season, and they're going to hold him out for tonight's match and then reevaluate, reassess. And again, there's a little bit of internet noise out there from the fan base saying, oh yeah, they've got to hold him out because they've got to keep him healthy for the World Cup. The thing is, he is on the bubble for the World Cup selection right now, and the injury is not helping his cause, because if he goes into the World Cup injured, obviously that's going to be one less player that they can use, and Canada has a pretty loaded roster. And then also, to get onto that team, he has to show out. Sitting on the bench is not going to help his case as a bubble player to get on that team. So this has to be eminently frustrating for him, because he needs minutes. He wants to be out there. We've seen it. He's told us that a couple of weeks ago. He went out injured, essentially scored a goal, had to leave the match early. Definitely happy about the goal, but also at the same time, you can see that he really, really wants this. And I'm just afraid that these injuries are converging at the exact wrong time for him, and he's going to be, unfortunately, on the outside looking in. I mean, we'll see. I'm not in Jesse Marsh's head here, which be kind of a fun place to be, maybe, but I don't know. I just feel like there's so much depth, and you just can't take any question marks into that roster, especially since Alphonso Davies has a hamstring injury that's going to take him right to the cusp of the World Cup, and he is a player that they absolutely need. And unless he is absolutely unable to go, they're taking him, and he might have to sit out some early matches. So there's your Canada report there.
Yeah. In the way that you have your personal ties to Seattle and Quebec, my partner's from Ontario, from the Greater Toronto area, like Jayden is. As much as I love all the boys equally, I love Jayden Nelson just a little bit more because he's an Ontario boy. I'm a bit more objective than maybe some people might assume. I'm not as entirely Austin-centric as some people might think. I want for all of these players to get their call out to play in a World Cup for their country. All of them. And MLS being dinks like they are when it comes to international break scheduling, they make that difficult. They make that difficult on people who are fans of local clubs. For these guys who, well, they have to mess with the form of their club to go and take international duty. For once in March, that was not the case. MLS actually acted like an international break was an international break, just like every top flight league in the world, other than MLS. All that said, crushing that things are looking less and less likely that he is going to make that Canada roster. What's so much more important to me, though, is a young player who is getting used to feeling injuries and getting used to being responsive to those injuries and learning at a very crucial stage what I think a player like Ilie Sanchez is a great example of, who takes really good care of himself, who knows how to rehab injuries, who knows when it is not worth it to push it because you feel kind of questionable and like maybe you can tough through it. Some of the comments that we've gotten from Estevez recently have indicated that this is something that Jayden is figuring out. Jayden is not used to not just bouncing right back from a minor injury, and it's messing with them a bit. It's unfortunate, the timing overall. But for me, for the career-long longevity of a player, they've got to get that under control. They've got to get that figured out. This is something he's got to figure out. If he ends up making that Canada roster, I kind of trust Jesse Marsh's judgment at this point.
Sure.
If it is a calculated gamble, Jayden Nelson is the quality of player that you want, a guy who can rock it off the bench or come out of the gate screaming in a starting 11 like Jayden Nelson is capable of. And Estevez is the kind of manager who has made it pretty clear that he's never going to make a decision that is going to prevent one of his players from playing for their national team at all, much less for a World Cup. So I would be surprised if there were not some very specific consultation going on between the Canada men's team and Austin's coaching staff in how to best take care of this player.
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind about that.
I'm reading it wrong, though. I kind of get a little bit of a WTF from Estevez about why the injuries, why so persistent. Like, contrasting that with Dani Pereira with the scar tissue thing, he seemed to think, oh yeah, this is kind of a absolutely kind of normal development, even though this is something that's kind of maybe fairly new to those of us in Austin who aren't used to having injuries talked about in such depth and detail, right? So
we're
via
used-
the previous era where
we're used to being told, here's the injury report, deal with it.
It's a lower body thing.
Yeah,
what part of the lower body, Josh, shows that?
I don't know. Not my department. You'd have to talk to high performance. Okay, we'd like to
Right.
talk to high performance. Sorry, you can't talk to high performance. Okay, there's our answer.
But it does seem like they're a little flummoxed at what's going on with Nelson, like why different parts of the leg, why it's persisting, that kind of thing. And I think, again, holding him out tonight is certainly precautionary, but I think it's also hopefully a chance for rest and reset. I mean, again, especially they do have matches Wednesday, they do have matches Saturday coming after this. So this is a particularly busy stretch. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me if there's any kind of question marks around him, especially Brandon can get some more minutes now. Owen can get some more minutes. Dani can get some more minutes. They can soldier through. And again, this is the part of the season where, yeah, these games are going to happen. You are going to have these midweek matches and you are going to need to rotate to a certain degree in order to survive. And again, we got James possibly, but we learned last night that he will not be returning to Minnesota after the World Cup. So this could be maybe the best opportunity for home fans to see him play. So maybe he starts, maybe he gets some minutes. I don't know. Maybe
He started exactly once, Phil. I don't know about that.
I know. But I'm saying if it's going to happen, like if there are going to be James minutes, if there are going to be the opportunity for taking James photos from your seat of him out on the field, then this might be the one. We might see him again. I don't know if that necessarily makes them better at this stage. I'm going up with the 3 questions as even before we edit this. So that'll, by the time you're listening to this, you can go there. And Ashley Page, when I asked her about that, she was just kind of, yeah, that's James. That's his career. He's been kind of injury plagued. And that was the risk going in. She doesn't seem particularly troubled by it. But then again, he hasn't really largely figured into the plans this season. And they have Joaquin Pereira and they seem to be just fine in chance creation. I mean, certainly could be better. They are still rocking a negative goal differential, which has a lot to do with getting routed 6-1, I believe it was, by Vancouver earlier in the season. But they are chugging along. They're 5th in the West. They're not necessarily one of the elite teams, but they're certainly in the playoff places. They're certainly in a place where Austin, I think, would love to be and could actually get to by the end of the year. Again, just given, and we'll talk about this in a little bit here, just the matches to come before the World Cup break could set Austin up in a position where they are more firmly in the playoff places. Of course, they are on the outside looking in, but not as bleakly as they were 2 matches ago.
Well, I guess starting with Minnesota, and speaking of James, as you know, I'm a very humble individual, and I mean, I don't like gloating, but I was right about James. Oh boy, I was right about James. I'm shouting from the rooftops. I'm so happy that I was right about James. I remember such gnashing of teeth, such rending of clothes that people were doing about how could Austin have given up this golden opportunity to get this player who is out of his prime and allegedly a locker room nightmare, who recently contracted rhabdomyolysis. Rhabdomyolysis is a condition that you get from being like dehydrated in a ditch for 2 days.
I think that got debunked by the club. But
if it got debunked by the club, where did it come from? That's my question. You don't just randomly go, this very specific medical condition, somebody's just going to make that up. Just having to spell rhabdomyolysis. Clubs have debunked all kinds of stuff, Phil.
Are we doing another spelling bee?
It's too early on a Sunday morning. My thing with James was this was a player who was very much looking at an MLS berth as a quick stop off on the way to retirement. I mean, he's got a Netflix documentary coming out here,
Wait,
I
what?
think within the week. Yeah, he's got a Netflix documentary called James, just James. Like, he's in full, I am diving straight into retirement mode.
Oh, God.
And he has basically not figured for, he's played just over 100 minutes total for Minnesota, started
103.
once, just over the length of one regulation match. So I hope they enjoyed watching the money they shoveled into that furnace burn, because I don't see what actual benefit they got out of it.
That's some good photos.
Yeah, they got some good photos. They probably sold some jerseys.
A little bit of coverage. Yeah.
There was a European star who was supposed to just set the league on fire, who played for LAFC and then went right back to Europe because things just didn't work out in MLS. There are various other stories that I could cite of, well, this guy's going to come into MLS and he's going to have a Messi effect and he's going to change everything and this, that, and the other. The Messi effect is not just, to me, about the quality that he still has on the field. It is the transformative effect that he had on that roster in terms of people who would come and play for pennies on the dollar compared to the euros they were making in Europe,
Right.
for what ended up being, in some of their cases, their retirement lap. The thing surrounding the whole James thing that I would like for people to remember the next time this happens, because it'll happen. It's going to happen. It'll happen on the other side of the World Cup. I'm sure that it will happen.
Griezmann is coming to Orlando.
Yeah,
on the other side of
Griezmann
the World
is
Cup.
coming to Orlando, and Griezmann, look, I don't want Griezmann to come to MLS and flop, because I think he's a tremendously talented player, one of my favorite international players to watch. I want to see him come to MLS and succeed, not at the expense of Austin. However, it is very much the retirement lap thing that has become the recurring MLS joke of, whoa, they're coming to MLS for the big bag of money right before they retire. Is that what Griezmann is doing? Or just finding a way to transition out of the European league that he was in? Is he going to end up playing his last years in MLS productively? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, is that roster build ready to absorb him? They haven't looked good in the first part of the season. The defenses look pretty leaky. I mean, they can't play all their games at New Stadium against Miami.
So, I mean, back to the immediate topic at hand, I wanted to touch on the home match against St. Louis before going back to Minnesota for just a moment. Not only did it give us the Biru Hand of God moment, which he and Brendan Heinzike, new father, Brendan Heinzike, by the way, as of just the other side of that match, got to rewatch on the Jumbotron, which we saw on the broadcast. One of the more entertaining parts of that match. Coming out of
Biru
that,
going. Look at this. Look what I did.
Check this out. Check out my highlight reel moment. The thing that match gave me in terms of validation for what I was thinking this team needs to do, not what I predicted they would definitely do, but what they needed there a couple games back, 5 games remaining, to bode for them, was they basically need to run the table, not just because of points, not just because of the numbers and the dollars and cents and all that, but because they've got to prove to themselves that they are, somebody go ahead and quote me on this, one of the best teams in MLS. I think that they are that if they show that they can actually believe that. And one of the biggest issues they've had so far is that dealing with these injuries, dealing with the adversity of some astonishingly terrible ref calls. You've seen them do what Brad Stuver said, where they've played a 45-minute game, a 60-minute game, but not many full 90-minute games.
Right, exactly.
And so much of it comes from that mentality and that focus and that trust in themselves and that belief in each other, where, who knows, maybe at one of these points, Bidu is going to stop doing stuff that is going to have Gallagher and Heinzike screaming at him every 3 minutes. Some of the link-up stuff still does need a little bit of work. But as a squad, these guys have been through a version of hell and have somehow survived it. So going into this Minnesota match, as you mentioned, where they are in the table, the performance they've had, the way that they've done so far this season, I think that they're very beatable. They are just as beatable as when Eric Ramsey was their coach. And I feel like Austin as a team likes going to play at Allianz. It's a good place with a good atmosphere, not exactly friendly to opposing teams, but it's one of those good atmospheres in MLS. And no matter how intense the home fans are, it's good to have that good atmosphere. So, yeah, they could absolutely lose this match. They could draw this match. I think they really need to win it because the prevailing wisdom is, yeah, they can beat San Diego away. Yeah, they can beat Sporting Kansas City at home, and then probably beat St. Louis just to the side of Memorial Day away. But this match tonight, as we record this, is the big question mark. It is the, can they show up? Can they show out? Can they prove their doubters wrong, who have been spending the entire first half of the season going, Austin is just the worst. They are the worst, the worst, the worst. They are the worst this. They are the worst that. They are the worst this other thing. People literally looking for stats specifically that fulfill their estimation of Austin is the worst. Well, according to this stat, they are the worst. Therefore, they will continue to be the worst. I'm not talking about you.
Those stats do exist, though.
Those stats do exist. And that is a problem. That is a problem. And that is the thing. But as much as looking at the performance up to now, in the same way that unfortunately Austin has helped other teams break their unfortunate streaks, there is always the present tense possibility of turning around that run of form, turning around that run of stats. But at this point, they've got 2 wins. They need to make it 3. They need to make it 3 against what is considered to be a formidable opposition that can absolutely beat them, that can absolutely draw them, that can absolutely deny them the win in their own house. They need it for every reason that you could need a win. You always need a win. Contrary to what some former coaches have said, you do kind of always need a win.
Right.
But this win, they need it for multiple reasons.
Okay. I mean, I see your case, but also with the 2 wins that they've had here, if this game against Minnesota is the lone draw in a 6-match unbeaten streak to head into the World Cup, let's say they draw here. And
It's survivable.
Again, yeah. It's not only is it survivable, but it still constitutes a really good stretch. You're drawing away at one of the better teams in your conference, and then you're winning games that you really need to win against what I would say is inferior competition. We saw those full 90 performances against Houston and St. Louis, which were absolutely encouraging. They're shutout wins. That's fantastic. We saw really good team goals in that. We saw the team actually playing defense the full 90, which we haven't seen for stretches of the season. But again, Minnesota is a tougher brand of opponent than honestly we're getting from Houston, which is still very much figuring it out, even though they've got some talent. And then St. Louis, which is the same sort of deal. We saw a team that didn't necessarily look like they knew what they were as a team. Lewin is coming back, obviously, with his wife dying. His world has been rocked. I feel like that's probably got ripple effects through the whole team. That's a really tough thing. And they've got new coach, new sporting director. They are very much in the figuring it out stage. And Austin will get them again, but first they're going to get San Diego, which has been having their own kind of turmoil. They did eke out a draw last night, but they've been on pretty bad winless streak here. And then you've got SKC, who lost.
So real quick on San Diego, to expand on that just a little bit, not only is it a midweek match in San Diego, but the issues that they have been having with their fan base, the most vocal part of the fan base, violently, negatively reacting to them not playing Chucky Lozano. The San Diego fan base is flying planes over that. And it's a midweek match, and it has all the potential for a vitriolic, reactionary fan base, really not being there for the players on the field, and it just being a midweek match that, I gotta say, it feels like the most vocal parts of that fan base really want Austin to win as proof that they're right.
Interesting.
And that Mr. Heaps can go kick rocks, as can Mikey Varas. And Nico has shown that coach v. coach, when San Diego were the bells of the ball, Nico pulled out a win against them when they were in the toppest of the top form that they have been. So there are a variety of factors, even more so than I think people are just basically expecting with them. But speaking of unfortunate things, as you were saying, SKC.
Yeah, SKC just lost 6-0 to Portland.
Oh, no.
A Portland team that we thought a month ago Phil Neville was on his way out, and we're kind of wondering about their prospects because they haven't looked that good consistently this season either, but sure looked good against SKC. So, which since it was a Saturday night and there was no Austin, got a chance to watch some MLS Countdown and MLS 360. That's how I experienced some of it. And Kalen Kyle predicted that Velde would score, and he scored, and boy, did a bunch of other Portland players score. So, yeah, good on Kalen Kyle, who's go back and watch it because her outfit is a statement.
Unless that weird force majeure kind of thing blows in, I don't see how San Diego SKC back-to-back aren't wins.
Bank points against beatable opponents.
And I feel like St. Louis is not really going to have that much of a home advantage in that last game before the break against Austin because they got shut out and frankly, like, were at full force. And it's not like they could claim that there was something weird about, I don't know, the elevation or the weather or how they laced their boots that day. It's going to be basically the exact same team and the exact same mindset against Austin as they're still figuring stuff out. And
that one I worry about a little bit just because it is St. Louis at home. They do have, decent crowd. They did beat Colorado last night, of course. Yeah. They beat them 1-0. Rob Holding got a red card in that match, so there is that.
But let me level with you, man. The Puppy Bowl is not a fortress. It just isn't. They had that big introductory season, and not only, as you said, they're figuring it out, new sporting director, new coach. On paper, they should be a better team, and they can't quite figure out why. All sympathies to everything that Lowen's been going through, and by extension, his teammates. Much more him, obviously, than his teammates, but there's just something not quite working there. And I don't know that they figure it out in 2 match days.
Well, if you wondered why Simon Bescher's goals last year was so much less than his XG, you did see what he did at the end of that 2-on-1 breakaway, which frightened us, where I just popped up in the press box and just said, okay, here we go. Let me capture this so I can chronicle this goal that's about to happen against us and deflate us. And then lo and behold,
we did not go gentle into that good night, did we, Phil?
No. One of my favorite interviewing moments that I've had was to ask Brad after the match, like, what was going through his mind on that play other than and he said, that's basically it. But then he talked about moving to his right, juking, trying to get into Hartle's head as he was bearing down on goal. And really, I think did enough to affect that play where the pass went slightly wide that threw Bescher off. But still, all Bescher had to do was direct that ball. That pass was still in the vicinity to where he could have slipped it past Stuver fairly easily. Instead, he opted for side netting, which is, again, it's heart stopping until you realize, that's side netting. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's resume.
On the literal knife's edge mentality from a goalkeeper is the reason why, and it's not because I focus on Austin for coverage. It's why I think the most baffling national team rostering decision out there is that the U.S. men's national team doesn't even have him on their depth chart. And I think that's nuts. I think it's absolutely an abdication of responsibility. And I don't even put it entirely in Mauricio Pochettino, which everybody and their mother, brother, and dad want to blame everything on Poch. But I think there are still some real weird issues with U.S. soccer that you don't see a Brad Stuver as somebody who's even considered an option for a home World Cup like this. And crazier things have happened. I mean, who knows? Maybe he ends up somewhere on that sheet. He certainly deserves to. And I think that will be one of those sort of conversation pieces as we see the U.S. men's team not do terribly well this year.
Yeah. Go to the MLS site, go to the Philadelphia-New England game, look at Philly's opening goal, which was actually a New England own goal with a New England defender getting a ball past Matt Turner, and tell me, first of all, that Turner could have done better on that, and tell me that Brad Stuver couldn't have saved that and saved the embarrassment of what happened there. So just go look at that highlight. It's also mildly hilarious, but
that is a perfect citation to go with. So looking at the opponents to come, give us your official call on what you see happening from these remaining matches, including tonight's.
Okay. Minnesota, I think this is a 1-1 draw. I think it's hard fought. I think they are going to come down to earth a little bit on this one. But again, I'm not distressed by a draw at Minnesota. And then San Diego, I think that's a win. I think that's a comfortable 2-0 gnashing of teeth. Calls for playing Chucky or freeing Chucky will continue. And then I see a 4-0 rout of SKC because it is SKC and they look very distressing right now, just given what that team has been, their history, Peter Vermees, all that. I don't think this job is long for Raphael Wicki. So, and speaking of Minnesota, Wes Burdine still, he said, if you can't hire a good coach, at least hire a hot coach. Raphael Wicki is a hot coach, but unfortunately, I don't think he's what this team needs. But again, this team doesn't have necessarily the players maybe to compete in MLS. I'm curious how SKC would do in USL Championship right now. And then St. Louis, that's still kind of an amorphous blob for me. I think that's a draw or win, but I think it just kind of depends on vibes and injuries going into that match. That's still too far in the future for my crystal ball. I'm leaning win. I think they can close out on a good run, but again, it's away, and if St. Louis finds some form, maybe that's a draw. But I don't see a loss in any of these matches. And if there is a loss, then I do begin to be concerned a little bit. On the other side of this, you're starting with Seattle. You've got some tough matches in July and August. I expect that this is not a team that's going to go unbeaten the rest of the way, obviously, but I see them going unbeaten into the World Cup stretch. And I have not been, like my daughter, the most optimistic person about this team at points in the season, but this does feel like a particularly light stretch for them, and they seem up for it. They seem like their mentality's in a really good place right now. They seem very not too high, not too low, but they're not high in the own supply of their 2 wins, and I think more wins are coming. Maybe just not tonight.
The way that I'm looking at the match tonight, I'm calling a 3-1 Austin win. I don't think they could hold a clean sheet against Minnesota. Right. I don't think that James scores that goal for Minnesota. What I'm thinking is
going to be Calvin Yeboah, probably.
Yeah, I think Yeboah is a good call.
He's got 7 on the season. That's the safe call.
That's definitely the safe money. What I see is the trend line of if they can win this one, then I think they can go not just unbeaten, but a full 6-game win streak into the World Cup break.
Sure.
I don't see them if they win against Minnesota, and I really don't see a permutation of the San Diego or SKC matches that don't involve an Austin win. If they're going into St. Louis away on a 5-game win streak, I don't see them losing that match, and I don't see them drawing that match. I see them upsetting the home team, giving them things to consider going into the World Cup break, and giving Austin an opportunity to clear their heads, stay healthy, keep working. Guys who are going to play in the World Cup, go play in the World Cup. Changes that happen during that transfer window will happen, and Austin could be set up for not having a bunch of changes. I think more MLS squads are going to see more fundamental roster changes than Austin will going into the second half of the season, and I think that stability is part of what will benefit them the most. They don't have to make as many big changes as various other teams do. And that isn't to say that Austin may not make some changes that aren't classified as, whoa, this is a big signing. Whoa, this is a great transfer. Whoa, this is a great upgrade at this position or at this collection of positions, in the way that some of their acquisitions have been very focused on. This guy can play 3 different positions. He's not just to this or just to this or just to this.
Right. Yeah. And again, just to circle back to the St. Louis match for a second before we go into summer changes. Yeah. I don't underestimate, though, the possibility of MLSing. And I do think that there could just be a weird match for Austin based on that. Like, what if an early red card changes things?
Totally.
Could that happen? We saw that happen in Charlotte. So certainly I don't discount that. But yeah, on paper, I do think, if it is a 5-match win streak or a 5-match unbeaten streak, at least, depending on what happens tonight, I feel reasonably confident that a win happens.
I think one of the important ways that Austin has improved is something that you literally cannot track in the stat sheets aside from just number of cards. A yellow card is a yellow card is a yellow card, but Austin players are doing better at playing nice with the refs and not reactionarily pushing themselves into card trouble they don't have to, with the exception of maybe Biru.
I was going to say, at least Biru is hilariously hurting.
And at least it's isolated, and it's not like 4 different guys are prone to that kind of thing. So summer changes, I would actually start with, I think people should just be ready for Bidu getting sold. Not because he's bad, not because he's the worst or something like that, but because I think they can do more with that roster slot than what he is capable of giving for them. And at some point, they've got to sell somebody. They got to sell somebody.
Right. Yeah, we're pretty sure that Przemysław Puenta is coming in, and you'll have to learn how to spell that name, right?
Yeah.
But he can play left back, and he can play wing, and he can play midfield. He has a lot of the versatility that Estevez and Roto seem to be looking for in a player. So again, I don't know how good he's going to be. We know he's fast. Looking into him a little bit more, I don't know that he's necessarily the best decision maker, but seems like he's got some skills that, again, yeah, there's the Sabovic question, there's the Robert Taylor question, who apparently now is day-to-day, may actually be on the roster tonight, which is a little bit surprising. It's a minor knee thing that he had, but who knows, depending. But yeah, we do know that there is going to be an outbound player in some form or fashion if we are indeed to assume that Puenta is coming here, unless, of course, we do learn, and again, MLS PA Christmas has not happened yet. Maybe John Bell is on a supplemental roster spot, and maybe there is one more senior roster spot to play with, and maybe they don't have to move anybody. But yeah, but I think Biru moving back to Brazil is a reasonable assumption of something that might happen, or again, barring a Sabovic transfer, maybe a Sabovic buyout.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I've seen crazier things happen than a player who's not performing especially well, like Sabovic, getting sold for a profit even. As many how did Roto pull that off kind of deals as we've seen. Wouldn't put it past him. I'll believe it when I see it. It seems that they're also good at making sure that checks actually deposit and don't bounce. Now,
looking at in both these cases, the Johan Romagna situation.
I feel like Sabovic is a case of when he came in, there was a lot of, oh, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be good. And sometimes somebody that looks like a fit just isn't going to be a fit. And maybe he'll fit great somewhere else. Romagna is actually a great example of thriving elsewhere. And that's the thing, is the impression that I've gotten. The Nicky Bolocco situation is a great example of if a situation is just not going to work out for a player, this is a club that part of their club identity, as they have let us see behind the curtain a bit better in the way that they talk to the press, talk to the public, they are going to make good choices for the players as well as the club. And those things going hand in hand is how you build a good reputation and a good relationship with the people that you need to be able to make some of those crazy deals happen.
Yeah, the Gabrielson situation, that was very sad, but that's another example of that. The Bukhari, again, I was really rooting for Bukhari to figure it out and be the player that we seen him be in flashes. But again, that's something that, again, he needed to get out of here to reunite with his wife and his kid. I don't know how well he's doing in Poland. I have seen some reports of late that he has been struggling to make the starting lineup, so that's a little bit concerning for him. I still root for the guy. I really liked him while he was here, but from a club perspective too, using that DP slot elsewhere is better, right? I mean, we're seeing more production out of Torres already than we saw out of Bukhari.
From his set pieces alone. His set pieces alone have been transformative.
Right. I was going to just say, we haven't seen the full blossoming of Torres yet because we haven't really seen it in open play. We haven't really seen it in terms of goals, but in terms of what he's brought to set pieces, what he's brought in terms of assists so far, it's all real good. It's very helpful.
I think there's a lot of optimism to be had about Austin as a club now that everything's gotten to where it has gotten to. And what bodes well for a productive World Cup break, a productive summer transfer window. Speaking of time machines, jumping in the time machine to before the Houston match. Boy, expectations were in hell. Expectations were in the basement of hell. Sell the club, get rid of it, just...
Well, that happens when you lose 5-1 and give up 37 shots.
Yeah. And dwelling on that past performance is something that I think helped motivate the level of focus that these guys are in, where, if the whole team is just doing really poorly, it's not going to bode favorably for your transfer value if you want to go somewhere else.
Here are my questions heading into the second half of the season, though. First of all, are we going to get the Brandon Vasquez that we got at Cincinnati? We didn't really get him before the injury. We saw him beginning to round into that. So I don't know how he's going to be on the other side of this ACL. Owen Wolf, as he gets more minutes, is he the chance creator along with Torres that we've seen here in at least the set piece department? Is that going to be enough, or do they need to get a true creator? Do they need to get, at least if not a number 10, somebody who can function as more of a chance creator first, right? So kind of akin to what Minnesota has with Pereira, right? So not necessarily the same heliocentric 10 that they've had before, but somebody who can function in that role. And then just what is the ceiling of this team? Are they like a 5th through 7th in the West team and nothing more, just kind of based on the talent and the coaching they have? Or can they get to that next level with, again, it's, if you look at them in a vacuum, yeah, maybe they are talented enough and well coached enough to do well, but can they really get past an LAFC or Vancouver or Seattle, given the talent they've got and given the coaching that they've got, right? Because again, they're not just competing against themselves and their own standards on the training pitch. They are competing against other teams that are frankly doing splashier things maybe in the market on a more consistent level than we've seen. Although certainly the Torres pickup, I think, was a statement. I think the Vasquez pickup was a statement, even though we don't know how those are going to work out. And then just Azuni, what's going to happen with him? Is he going to continue in this kind of connector role? Is he flourishing? I did an article midweek where, yeah, his numbers are certainly better. 4 goals, 4 assists. That's what you want out of a DP at this stage of the season. But you look at his raw numbers and they're not really improved over last year. So he's luckier. He seems to be, by the eye test, playing better, but it's not necessarily showing up in all of the statistics as we drill down a little bit more. And that just makes me wonder, is Azuni parked on this level, or is it just that the numbers aren't reflecting what he's doing? And don't get me started on goals added, because he's something like 22nd in goals added on this team, and Robert Taylor's in the top 5. And they don't do this per minute, right? So, again, they just kind of look on the raw numbers when you're on the field. And if you're only on the field 66 minutes like Robert Taylor's been, you're not going to see those flourish. But yeah, goals added is effing weird, man.
So what you're saying is that it's really easy to cite various stats that can be incredibly misleading. Sorry, just my favorite drum to
I don't know. I don't know if they're misleading. I mean, is the eye test misleading? I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, it's complicated. You're not necessarily what your stats say you are. You're not necessarily what your eye test says you are. It is a combination. It is how you function with those other players on the field. But I still have big question marks around him right now. I have a sense overall that, yes, Azuni in 2026 is much better and much more well-adjusted on this team than he was in 25. But I still kind of wonder about what his future is, especially as Vasquez integrates more and more in the team. We've seen him connect well with Ramirez. Is he going to connect well with Vasquez, since that was a struggle last year?
The indication I've got from the way that he's been playing is that he is eager to perform. He knows that his future depends on that. Whether the offer that came through from that Turkish team, who apparently have made big offers for other players that have also not worked out, feels to me like, hey, if that had worked, sure, it would have been great for everybody. But the timing combined with, like, there's the initial, hey, what about this? And then that it came effectively at the, hey, say yes to this right away. It feels to me like it wasn't quite as perfect and rosy as I think it's been portrayed. But if
although
an offer,
there was
that
interview though. There was that interview this week where it said he was really, really close. Like, he characterized it as being very, very close.
He characterized it as really, really close. Here's the thing about players. They generally don't know about the actual deal making, because they just get the, hey, would you agree to this at the first step of something?
Yeah.
And the way that it's been described is that it then went to the, okay, let's talk Turkey. We've got 3 hours. And then suddenly Darth Vader, then very suddenly Darth Vader style, the terms of the deal have changed. Wait, hold on a minute. I don't know that we can finish this in 3 hours. Where the way that it smelled to me, and the way that this other deal, and I'm not even citing it, but there was this other deal involving the same club that had a similar kind of, hey, this looks too good to be true Guess what? It didn't end up happening. Maybe it was too good to be true. But I think the interesting thing that may have done for Uzuni is bizarrely help boost his confidence in an important way, which was, if you want deals that good to keep coming, you've got to produce. And to me, the way that he has produced this season in ways that do not come up traditionally in the stat sheets is he is a more multifaceted 10 than Lionel Messi in terms of what use he is to his team.
Okay.
More multifaceted. I didn't say better.
Right.
I didn't say better. I didn't say better goal scorer. I didn't say better player overall.
That is code for he actually plays defense.
Yes, he actually plays defense, and viciously and aggressively, and more so than many other 10s across the league.
And consistently across the full 90.
Consistently across the full 90. And it's something that show me the stat that actually accurately monitors and tracks what I'm describing here. To me, the biggest upgrade, it's not been that he's scored 14 goals or something like that. It's that he is a more tenacious, plays both sides of the field 10 than most guys wearing that number or playing that role in the league.
I think we call that X-Dog.
What's X-Dog? That's X-Dog. That is the stat that isn't a stat that I think he is undervalued for what he's contributed to the team this year. Because of that specific thing that he.
I think it's
doing.
Getting noticed, though.
Getting
Certainly,
noticed.
it's getting noticed with Austin.
Getting noticed,
fans, but I think also nationally, people are kind of realizing what kind of player he is. When you are highlighting national games with Austin playing in them, with some of these Sunday games we've had, and you have Uzuni being featured, some of that has to do with who's injured, right? So you're not able to default to Brandon Vasquez because he is just now getting back on the field, but certainly he's doing things that are beginning to capture notice. Like, I don't think he's getting an all-star nod necessarily, but at the same time, I think that he is being recognized as, a face of this franchise as it currently exists. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all.
I think his very forceful, very Albanian pride of self, I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
No.
I would rather have him feeling his confidence than feeling his confidence shaken the way that he did most of last season.
Right. Yeah.
To me,
do those Napoleonic crown yourself celebrations.
Look, good. To me, he is a completely different player this year. And I think it's wonderful for him. I think it's wonderful for his teammates. And look, if people think that WWE level persona he sells is hilarious, give people a reason to smile and laugh and be joyful. Like, why you want to be sad all the time?
Enjoy Giroud punching a ball into the goal. Enjoy Uzuni crowning himself.
We could be on the verge of a very special moment in following this club, where it is trying to figure out who it is and who it really is. I've mentioned in the past in interviewing players, there has been this notion of Austin are the doubted team in the league, and that is how they've been characterized. They've been doubted at the wrong moments by the biggest clubs and that sort of thing. And that, to me, is not really a personality to be had. It's a series of experiences surrounding a club. And I think that in a league who went through and, rebranded various teams as, cosplay equivalents of Real this and Sporting this and, borrowing the football culture of other much more established football societies. I think Austin is emerging into its own thing. It is not America's Liverpool. It is not America's Barcelona. It is not America's this or that. It is Austin FC. And this is the time when they get to shed the first half decade of their expansion existence into characterizing what that is. This is a club that I'm not saying this is imminent, but I think based on things that he said, Ilie Sanchez would very happily retire at this club. And to me, a generational leadership talent like Ilie Sanchez being a major part of the foundation of building the culture of your club is a huge thing. And it's something that I think people will reflect on this time very, very fondly depending on how the next few games go.
Right. And as we were getting off the very nice Mercedes-Benz shuttle after Sunday's match. So kudos to the club, by the way, for shelling out the money for that shuttle, because we've been used to party buses, essentially.
That was just one of
ramshackle.
various buses. We just got lucky. It was
it was so nice. But anyway, you circled August 13th on your mental calendar. Club America playing Austin in the final match of group stages for Leagues Cup, which again, it's an afterthought. It's a weirdly placed tournament. It's right after the World Cup, and it's a few games after the return to action for the second half of the season. It's going to be weirdly placed. It's always a weird tournament, but you've got a feeling about this one.
I've got a feeling that is going to be a turning point moment for the club, where the opening Inter Miami's new stadium game was a big deal. And I think it was a bigger deal than a draw in an away match that I think a lot of people have given it, because it could have been a win. It totally could have been a win.
Right.
If their heads had been in a better place, if the officiating had not been as officiating as it was, could have been a win. And that would have been glorious. But I don't think it's given the credit that it deserves. But a win at home against one of the Continental Titans, that could be really, really big. And people, myself included, have said all manner of things about Leagues Cup and why the competition exists in the first place and everything. But when it comes down to it, Austin was not in CONCACAF Champions Cup this year, but this is their opportunity to face that kind of opposition. And the other two Liga MX teams are no slouches either, but Club America is Club America. There is a massive opportunity there where I think odds making wise, it's real easy to go, well, there's no way Austin's going to win that. Well, what happened with Monterrey and Pumas?
Right. Yep.
You know,
and there's no Open Cup anymore to contend with, sadly.
Nope.
So Leagues Cup actually, I would say, represents Austin's best chance at a trophy right now.
Can you imagine Austin not only beating Club America, but knocking Club America out of Leagues Cup in the group stage?
Do you think they get to let us, do we get to hold that 22-pound trophy if Austin wins it?
Hey, start doing those arm curls now.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
We've seen it at the Yeti flagship
massive.
store.
It's absurd.
The Yeti flagship store, very large, unwieldy trophy.
Yeah.
God, I love it. All right, let's wrap up with just kind of a mom's report since it is Mother's Day. So my mom, she is moved out of the childhood home. It looks like it's going to sell. That's in progress. Yeah. So that's very exciting. Kudos to my brother for helping my mom empty a house that she had lived in for 50 years, if you can imagine. Pretty amazing work there. But your mom, we've talked about her transition to her new living situation and the steep rent and all that. So give us an update on what's up.
It's still a Sisyphean boulder that I'm trying to roll up a hill. And it's the thing that has, it's not that I don't want people to ask how my mom's doing, how I'm doing, that sort of thing. But it is a difficult question to answer when things are as difficult and steep as they have been, when it's facing imminent eviction, where her rent was due on the 1st. And these senior living companies do not play. Literally what the office administrator told me. They do not play with late rent.
God.
So, yeah, I'm confident that in the short term, things are going to be okay for May somehow or another, because I can't give myself another option. A very helpful person who doesn't know me or my mom posted in reply to a childhood friend on Facebook who spread the link around. I think he's just going to have to sign her up for Medicaid. And the reality is that the combination of stuff that she's got going on, Medicaid really would be a death sentence, not just in terms of the standard of care, not just in terms of the warehousing level kind of living conditions that there are with lack of care to communicable diseases. They are not actively vaccinating seniors for COVID in those facilities anymore.
Oh God. Yeah.
To the point that you literally have to fight to get them vaccinated for something that can lead to the leading cause of death of seniors in those sorts of facilities, which is pneumonia. So it's something that I've just got to find a solution for. And over the last 14 plus months, the number of times that we have faced various situations that have been more dire and more life-threatening than this, where I've had less control over things. Money is a thing that can be solved. Money is a thing that people invented. Money is an imaginary thing, as daunting as it can be,
unless it's real like this. Yeah,
it is real, but at the same time, solving a problem like this, it's a solvable problem where if someone is dying of sepsis, they're dying of sepsis, and you can't just figure out a way to get an extension on something or find someone to ask for help with the imaginary construct that people came up with many, many years ago. So whatritataught.me.com redirects to the main newsletter page. If you can do a one-time donation, if you can sign up for the newsletter, which by the time this is live, the newest Sunday morning Mother's Day specific installment of it should be live.
Okay. Does that go to your inbox then, the newsletter?
Yeah. The newsletter is going out once a week on Sundays, and it's pay what you can and always will be. So you can do a monthly amount of whatever amount, or if you just want to read it, just read it. And the main reason that I'm doing it is to memorialize and capture and chronicle my mom's career and contributions to education and the story of my younger brother and that sort of thing, and just her life story. The main thing that, as I was telling different people about things over the last year, was they said and this is something that I've counseled clients of mine, is you've got to give people a way for them to give you money if they want to give you money. And if you want to help contribute to my mom's ongoing care, the two front battle that I am waging until I find an ongoing solution is there is the constant triage of the month in front of me right now and how to pay for it on an ongoing basis. Because if I cut that check for May, then I've got another $5,000 mountain to climb. Let's see, as of today, I would have 21 days for the next one. So the sooner I am able to solve that, the sooner I am able to actually focus on capturing the stories of my mom's life, of her professional life, rather than devote the vast majority of my time to solving that monthly $5,000 mountain. And it's something that I know that it's doable. I know that the math looks impossible, but the only way that it is impossible, like turning around a season of soccer, is by resigning yourself to saying, well, it's not doable, it's not solvable. But that isn't to say that it has not been a very, very, very difficult week, and not been helped by having a migraine yesterday. Yeah, the stress is something else, and having this team to cover and these games to watch. And I'm going to watch the game tonight with her and see what other insight she has. She likes Ilie Sanchez very much. She likes, what's his name again? Our Albanian, she calls him. She calls me too, our Albanian. She says, I like him because when he sees an opportunity, he goes for it. He doesn't just mess around. And I'm like, I'm glad that our assessment of him is in alignment, Mom. So one person agrees with me other than Phil about me too.
Right. So if you can spare $5 a month, $10 a month,
yeah, $5 a month, anything, literally anything. Yeah. Whatritataught.me.com. It might take your browser a minute to do the redirect, but if you just go to buttondown.com/office hours, that goes directly to the subscription page for the newsletter.
Especially if there are teachers in your lives, maybe forward to them.
Yeah, big time. And that's the hope. And eventually the hope is that I can do a little bit of podcast type stuff with her, but that'll be an editing job of its own, because getting the notes for the newsletter has been an adventure, to say the least.
Okay, well, good. So do think about that. Again, we encourage you to obviously help Moisés and his mom through this transitional time that they are going through. And that is a daunting mountain, but it gets less daunting if enough people chip in. And I know, obviously, from Alex and getting his camera replaced, that we do have a community of generous, loving people here that look out for each other. So
and everybody who's contributed either through subscriptions or through one-offs, it's been tremendously heartening. We still do have a very steep hill to climb, but a certain chunk of donations that came in the initial wave made it so that I was able to get her some emergency dental care that she needed, which even though she's got good supplementary insurance on top of her Medicare, she avoided getting dental insurance because the premiums were insane, as everybody's premiums are getting insane. But that's a whole other podcast and a whole other newsletter.
Yeah. A different kind of emergency, as it were.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, enjoy the match tonight.
3-1, 3-1,
and
3-1, 3-1.
Matches to go. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll
how it
see.
goes.
We'll see.
It makes for interesting podcasts when we are diverse in our opinions, as it were.
Yeah.
But at least none of us are projecting losses and doom and gloom, and maybe we do still feel emotions.
Maybe.
This is the best finger fought in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.